Colton. Thank you for joining us on Healthy Minds, Healthy Lives. I'm your host, Nadirah. Today, we're going to be talking about the student mental health. With me today is Michael O'Leary, the Executive Dean of Faculty for Sheridan College. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm enjoying being here. Thank you.
So, I want to talk to you today specifically about the mental wellness and health about the students. You have three locations and around over 20,000 students. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you've seen in regards to student mental health.
Well, students of any age, when they enter any academic institution, and certainly at Sheridan College, they're faced with a breadth of challenges. And sometimes it's the newness. Maybe it's the first person who's ever attended a post-secondary educational institution in their family. Sometimes it's coming from a different country and adjusting to Canadian culture and the Canadian academic system. And so students often can feel, if they're away from home, homesick. They can feel lost from their family. They certainly can feel the anxiety and depression if they are isolated away from their family, or if they're stressed from the academic rigor of their program. Maybe they're having challenges making friends, which can also play a confounding factor. And so there's a breadth of scenarios upon which students feel like they need support. And we're doing our best to make sure that those students have the support that they need when they're at the college.
So let's talk about the first year. The first year is always the toughest year. Let's talk about the first year at college, whether they are still staying at home and going to school or on site, they have moved away from home. What are the challenges that you've seen that they experience, and what type of support is available when it comes to the onboarding of these new students?
So that's a great question. Students who arrive at Sheridan sometimes don't know what to expect. Physically, they're entering a big institution. Many academic institutions are almost like little small cities themselves. And so finding their way around, adjusting to as I mentioned, the academic standard, but more so than that, fitting in, adapting to the academic standards, and keeping up with work. If they have a family at home or they're supporting someone else, that places an added stress on that individual. So there's really a multitude of factors that impact students when they come in and adjust to that first year, that first semester curriculum. At Sheridan, I can speak for Sheridan certainly, we have invested heavily in making sure that our international students who arrive are well supported. We embarked and led the development of an international student charter, which many academic institutions have signed on to, and certainly has formed the basis for which we should be supporting international students when they arrive. Things from housing to how we support them in counseling services. And at Sheridan, we provide counseling services that are culturally inclusive in their own language. And that has been tremendously successful. As you might expect, that if you come to a different country and seek out support, but it's not in your native tongue, it might be very difficult to have some success in adapting to that support that's being given to you. So we have taken a holistic approach at Sheridan, looking at everything from peer mentors, peer tutors, to support the academic side, and then everything from, as I mentioned, culturally inclusive counseling to health and wellness seminars to engaging our students in being good academic citizens and being a part of the campus community really does go a long way to making a difference in their mental health.
So walk me through the onboarding process. I'm a new student. I'm walking. What does that onboarding process look like? A, to make me feel welcome. B, for me to figure out what am I doing? Where am I going?
Yeah.
And also, what are the services that are available to support these individuals?
It's a good question. Really, your support begins before you arrive. And so we generally send students, if they're international students, we have sessions that are in country that prepare them. But also for local or domestic students, we send them information in advance. And every program begins with the orientation of students before the semester begins. Typically, a week or two before the semester will begin, we'll invite the new students to come to campus with their family, friends, whoever might be supporting them, learn where their classes are, meet their faculty, and from that perspective, they can really engage in those crucial conversations about, hey, what do I need to know first day? Maybe I make a friend during that orientation session, so I have a friendly face when I walk into that classroom. In terms of orienting themselves, they also get introduced to the health center, which is a critical place, our student service center, and where the faculty sort of hub is, where they can find their faculty, where they can find the support staff that are going to guide them through some of the challenging problems that they have. Excuse me. But really, when we look at how we're supporting them, it is an ongoing day-by-day basis.
Michael, are there any training for the faculty, for the professors to identify any mental health challenges that any student may be going through?
Well, typically our faculty are certainly experts in their field, and they're not the one-on-one individuals who are dealing in a frontline situation with respect to the mental health issues. We typically make sure that we're employing the right individuals in the right space. Our faculty are guided by our counseling team about what perhaps to look out for, what may come up in conversation, but the referral network is direct right into our counseling services or other public services that might be required for that particular situation. And so it really is a collaborative effort between faculty, students, support staff to navigate that situation.
Yeah. Because university colleges, schools are extremely stressful for students, right? Number one is the fact that it's very different. They've moved away from home. They don't have a lot of family support. It's a whole new world. There's also the burden, the stress of financial now because they have to pay for it. Some of them may be lucky that the parents are helping them. Others have to work, right? So there's a lot of additional stress on these students. What kind of support system exists today at Sheridan to help them through this?
Well, I do think that there is a natural stress with coming to post-secondary education. That is also paired with a lot of opportunity, and what we find is that students do build a lot of resilience. And so I do want to impart upon the audience that overall, students who do come to Sheridan, who do engage in post-secondary education, yeah, they do go through some stressful times, but they also gain a tremendous benefit in addition to the academic rigor, the academic credential that they might be earning from the end of it. In terms of those extraordinary circumstances where students are perhaps confounded by variables with respect to finances, dependence, maybe they have to travel a long distance and work another job, and they're really feeling the stress of having a lot on their plate. I think there is a number of services that at Sheridan we have worked to make sure that we understand the student situations first. By working with our student support team, we have academic accommodations that can be made for students. And that's a breadth of individuals who have expertise in that area that can address some of maybe the academic challenges that they're having because of the need of an accommodation. And we can investigate and explore that with our students very effectively. And we work to make sure that we accommodate all of our students to the best of our possible capacity. And sometimes really, the faculty are working hand in glove with our accommodation team to make sure that their academic experience is a success. In other instances where maybe a student hasn't been successful and they're feeling those pressures, we often work again through academic planning, sitting down with the student to show them their pathway to success. We work with counseling services in some instances in that regard. And we also actively seek out any opportunity, whether it be a bursary, an award, etc., for students who may qualify for those particular awards or bursaries to make sure that we can find and support our students as best as possible so that we can support their success and see them become the next generation of professionals in our community.
And Michael, do you have on-site counseling that's available to students walking at any time?
We do, and we also have telephone-based counseling. As I mentioned, it's done in culturally inclusive way through a breadth of languages. Specifically, we have a strong population of students from South Asia in the Punjab, and we make sure that we have those types of language-based services for them. Our frontline staff who work at the college are also, whether it be in counseling or not, are also becoming much more culturally diverse, and we have a lot more staff now that speak native tongues, whether it be Arabic or Punjab, etc., just to help students on the frontline level as best we possibly can.
So let me ask you this question, and I came across that situation maybe a couple of years ago. There was an international student that was failing, and it failed for 2 years in a row.
Mm.
So at what point, I don't know what Sheridan policy is. If a students keep failing, what are the steps that typically the college will take?
So these, I will start out the answer, but these are adult learners, and they are actively in charge of the decisions that they make. We do our best to make sure that they understand all of the options before them and sort of the situation that they're in. So in a student who has been unsuccessful in a particular course, we often will pair or look for peer tutor opportunities to pair them with someone who has been successful, or peer mentor if it's a hands-on practical course. Mapping out before they begin making that decision what it would look like in terms of course progression and how they would progress through their curriculum. At the end of the day, the students will be in charge of their academic future. They can often, if they present with, this really isn't a course or program I'm interested in. We have tremendous number of programs at Sheridan, and I'm sure other academic institutions are the same, where you can actively seek out something that might be of more interest into them. And sometimes that is the challenge, that students aren't in the right spot. And we seek out that information from them as best as possible. But yes, as I mentioned, they are the ones that are driving the academic decisions. They are accountable for meeting the academic standards akin to the rest of their classmates. And I think that at the end of the day, when they finish that program, the piece of paper that they get will be so much more, because every student who has come through that program actively has met all those standards.
And Michael, for this particular student, and for me, I just find it was a little bit alarming and concerning, because he actually failed all classes. It was 4 semesters. So what is the process at Sheridan? If somebody fail, okay, first semester, they fail all classes, is there any conversation to look into the mental health of this student? Why are they failing? There's something clearly causing this student to fail, right? Not just maybe the difficulty of those classes and courses that they signed up for. And does that happen after the first semester? Second, is there a process in place today at Sheridan to take a look at that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the conversations that are happening are between the program coordinators and the students. Certainly when a student fails all their courses, there are academic policies in place that may have, depending on the program, the student would have to reapply to that program in those exceptional circumstances where they've been unsuccessful in all of their courses. And part of the reason why is to drive the student back to support staff or academic staff at the college in order to have those crucial conversations and to find out, hey, what happened here? What I would say is that midterm of particular curriculums and programs, there often is a review of where the students stand at that midterm point. Faculty often engage in those conversations that you're talking about. If someone was struggling across all their courses, they'd say, hey, let's take a pause here. What's going on? We're noticing that there's a challenging academic record here. Shed some light on it. And it could be an academic accommodation that's required for a particular student, and they didn't even know it existed. And so we have those conversations. Or it could be something much more complex outside of the college, like an external factor. They're working night shift and then they're coming to the college to study. It often is not successful because the student is tired. It's just too much on their plate. And so we work with them in different ways around a reduced course load or some other aspect of finding ways to make sure that they have maybe an on-campus job that can replace that income so they don't have to work overnight. So there are many avenues, but what I will say to you, what makes it increasingly complex is that every student is an individual that comes with their own story, and no two students are alike. And we actively speak and reach out to our students, and we know that not all of them come forward at the same time. And sometimes they come forward after that first semester where they've had a lot of trouble. And so there is a lot of learning that goes on both sides. The college actively learns from every case. So each year that we go through this, we see an improvement in our services because we continually review, revise, and look at all the different things that we're providing in terms of support to our students.
And you mentioned that you have over the phone support with that support different languages.
Hmm?
Are you finding that the students are actually reaching out when they are going through some anxiety, depression, and actively calling?
Our counseling services are booked. So students are reaching out. Um, you know, international students may have different needs in terms of what they're reaching out for. Like I said, it could be homesickness, it could be adjusting to a new culture, it could be the academic program, it could be a situation where you just mentioned where they've been unsuccessful in a course and they're feeling the financial strain. And those are all real situations. And, it could be something else for, different learners. And so our students are made well aware of those services at orientation, pre-arrival. Our faculty are well trained on making sure that they know when they see a student where they can send them. And I would say that the relationship between our faculty and our students is a professional relationship, but our faculty deeply care about the success of these students. And there's been, faculty who have brought, because they had an early morning class, they brought breakfast for the students because they knew some of them weren't eating. And that just shows you the depth of the caring and the passion that our faculty have at Sheridan for the success of our students. They go that extra mile, and certainly when it comes to these complex situations, we do our best to make sure that they're referred to the right person for the right service.
And Michael, is there any such thing called the buddy system for especially for the first year student? Because I think the first year is probably the most challenging year for any students, right? And then it gets a little bit easier second, third, like from an integration perspective, maybe the classes courses doesn't get any easier, but at least they made some friendships, they know some people, they know how to get around, they're on a routine. That first year, are you guys providing any type of like buddy system for them?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it necessarily a formal buddy system. There may be a program or two that actually actively does that. But certainly one of the keys of our orientation session is to make sure that you know somebody, make sure that you make a friend, or make sure there's at least a collision there. Throughout the academic programs, and certainly in the first semester, what we find at the college system is students are cohorted into groups, and it might be a lab group. And that cohort will move together. And there often is strong relationships found. Different groups within that cohort are formed. That buddy system that you're talking about is alive and well at Sheridan, and certainly amongst the student population. And it goes across, international students, domestic students, it doesn't matter. All of them are working together often to navigate the challenges of their academic program and come together and overcome those challenges, and hopefully throughout the duration of their program meet to graduation.
And Michael, let's talk about 2020 COVID.
Okay.
What were the set of challenges that you guys were dealing with back then?
Um, from the mental health side, um, there was a shift in sort of what students were experiencing, and pre-COVID, and sort of when you're in the rigors of in-person education, there's a lot more conversation, connection to members of the Sheridan community, staff, where sort of informal conversations can become mechanisms through which people find services and support. During COVID, as we all know, we would be on the computer and we adapted to online education. once you hit that leave button from the class, everyone was gone. And there certainly was an elevated sense of social isolationism, that students were feeling, disconnect from one another. Although I will say that COVID was a special time that we actively tried to engage students in different formats in a virtual way, that made a difference. What we did see in the health sector, there was a heightened level of stress and anxiety with completing their programs. Students were still going to placement in hospital, where COVID was, which for some students was extremely stressful, and we understood that. But for us to complete the program, we needed to make sure that they had those clinical hours. So, depending on where the students were, certainly an increase in isolation that they felt, but also in dealing and navigating in those key areas of the healthcare sector, we saw an elevated level of stress and anxiety that was associated with just dealing directly with COVID.
And for our viewers out there, the parents out there, what can they do to support their children?
I think one of the best things that parents do is act as a sounding board and talk to their children. Um, these are adult learners now. They are in charge of their academic career. If a parent were to call me and say, "Hey, I want to talk about my child's grades," I would unfortunately say I can't, because it's their academic record now, and they're over 18. And even if they're paying for it, I still can't talk to them
You
about it.
get
So,
parents that call and ask to get the report card.
well, it's not akin to that. It's not that, but maybe there's something that's happened and they want to dig into it. And I really am unable to specifically talk about it because it's privacy protected. So what I would say is for parents is to have that conversation, have an ongoing conversation about what's going on, what's going really well, what's really challenging, what's your friend group like, how's campus life, is there anything I can do to support or help? Oftentimes those little conversations built up over time really function to, one, make sure that parents are aware of any of those big bumps that are taking this killer course, and it's taking up all my time and I feel stressed about it. That might be an opportunity for a parent who has been to post-secondary, said, "Hey, have you looked at peer tutoring? Is there any tutoring available at the college?" So those helpful suggestions that might just drive students towards those services, or um, have that conversation to de-escalate that scenario. What we are finding is that students who do go through this process, they build up resilience over time. So you talk about first semester being the hardest. Well, it gets easier in second semester, and by second year, again, you're building up that resilience to that stressful exam period or that big test. And by the end, our students come out as highly resilient, ready to go professionals in their field of work.
So, Michael, we have a few minutes left here. What is your top three advice for the students when it comes to making sure they have a great experience and manage their mental wellness while at college?
Yeah, attend all your classes is number one. Even if it's at 8 a.m. in the morning, get up and go to class. It is so important to be present in your program. I know that students can often develop habits of saying, "I'll just get the notes from someone else." You actually need to be there. Number two, I think absolutely make a friend. Have a friend, find a friend early. They will be that person if you happen to miss a class, that you can lean on, or during that tough time, you can have that conversation and really feel that sense of support from a community. And I think third, if possible, limit the amount of time you're spending in front of a screen and get some physical activity. One of the things that we have seen across all groups is that the amount of mental health issues you experience goes down as you are more physically active. And that makes sense. The body gets reset through moderate to vigorous physical activity, and it helps just reorient you. So getting daily physical activity, I'm an exercise scientist, so I have a bias that way. Going to class, and certainly making and joining friend groups within your program.
I know we have 2 minutes here left, but I want to answer this question. Technology, ChatGPT. How
Mhm.
does that affect classes, courses, and all that? Is that helpful or harmful?
I mean, I think it's going to be helpful. I think that the advent of artificial intelligence and AI is going to find its way into the economy. It's going to find its way into work and professions, and certainly into academics. It really is a disrupting force right now. It has come on strong, and we have a model of education that it does provide disruption. What I would suggest to all students, anyone using it, is be authentic. ChatGPT can be a tremendous resource for, gaining resources, but it can't be your authentic work. Your authentic work is your own, and you have to create it. And the temptation has never been greater. But what I would say is that often students, in fact, almost all the time, students who do engage in using that type of thing, they do get caught and they face academic penalties. So it's absolutely essential that you produce that own work, but you learn how to leverage it.
Yeah, it is absolutely crucial that they learn, they understand to know how to do critical thinking, decisions, formulating. It's good to use the resources, but they just can't copy and paste.
You said it better than I could.
Because there seems to be a trend nowadays because everybody's taking the path of least resistance and less work. But on that note, Michael, we're running out of time. I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for giving us such great information. It's really great to see that Sheridan College has a lot of different support and resources available to assist students domestically or international students. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great to have a chat with you.
And for my viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us today. Always a pleasure sharing information. And until then, I want to say stay positive and start believing.